Get in the room. It is 5:48. Is Laura in the main room or online?
No, Laura's not.
I am going to call the meeting to order and recess till 6 o'clock. It does not look like we currently have a quorum. I'm not sure what's in the room. But there is a possibility that I will be off the call and Laura will presume as the vice chair.
Okay, right now, members that we have, I'm going to have Ms. Wood to do the attendance because we do have, of course, our members virtually, and we also have some of our members here that are with us here in the boardroom. We have Attorney Smith, we also have Mr. Collins, and we also have a new board member that Diane will be introducing shortly. So that will give us three. That will give us three here in the room, and I'm actually omitting Laura right now as we speak.
Okay, so at we can go ahead and call the meeting to order at 5:49 p.m. And go ahead with the roll call. Um, thank you.
I'll get you.
I have Mr. Collins. I have Ms. Gabriel attending virtually, Cheryl Golden virtually, Mr. Siddiqui attending in person, and Attorney Smith attending in person.
Madam Secretary, is it possible to call the roll call of all who is supposed to be in the room?
This is Laura Fullman. I'm here.
If we can just call the roll call of the individual that should be in the room so that we know who's absent and who's actually present.
Okay. Ms. Bazemore, Ms. Coleman Farrell, Mr. Collins, Mr. Diaz.
Here.
Ah, there you are, Dr. Diaz. Okay, Reginald, Ms. Evans, Ms. Frischberg, and Christine Tibbs.
And Laura Feldman.
Sure,
You have Laura and Charmaine?
I do have Laura now, and Ms. Postel, yes.
Does that start a quorum?
Yes.
Do we have a quorum?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Hearing that we have a quorum, approval of minutes from the month of September. The minutes were distributed in a previous email for your review. And let the record reflect that Ms. Coleman at this moment, I'm not sure if you heard me or if I was on mute. At this moment, if I can have an approval of the minutes from last September's meeting.
I move that we approve the September 12th, 2022 meeting minutes.
I second.
Thank you. I believe that was Mr. Smith that.
It was.
Thank you. The members in the room and respectively those online can identify yourselves as we speak because it's kind of hard to identify who is speaking. The minutes have been moved to be approved and seconded. Any objections or comments or concerns? Are ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved as distributed. Public comment at this time. Is there anyone in the room or online for public comment? We'll start with the room and then online.
Madam Chair, it doesn't appear, I'm getting feedback. I'm getting feedback. Madam Chair, it doesn't appear that we have anyone on the screen virtually for public comments. We do have a guest here in the boardroom with us, and we also, point of privilege, we have our new member that was approved at our last board meeting that is with us this evening as well. Prior to our guest introducing herself, I would like, Madam Chair, for Ms. Wood, the secretary, to just read the bio of our new member, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Um, Absolutely. If there's anyone that's in the public that would like to speak after those two presentations, please allow.
Okay, we'd like to welcome to the committee Imran Siddiqui. He serves as Associate Vice President for Workforce Education and Employment Solutions, spearheading the college's innovative approach to student placement. His management responsibilities include oversight of career services, internship, employment placement, employer partnership, and BCX, which is Broward College's Entrepreneurship Experience Movement. Imran joined the college in 2019 and quickly built BCX into the area's premier higher-end startup accelerator program and statewide model for emerging entrepreneurship efforts with social impact programs. Prior to the college, Imran dedicated his career to public service, first as a startup and nonprofit founder advisor, and primarily as a strategist and organizer on statewide and national campaigns. Imran holds a bachelor's degree in political science from Florida Atlantic University and a Juris Doctorate from Western New England University, which he attended as public interest scholar. He is a graduate of Leadership Florida Connect Class 8 and serves in a leadership capacity on multiple local and national boards. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, Amron, on board. Look forward to meeting you in person and continuing to work with you on board as well. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
At this time, our guest, she was with us last month, but I'll have the guest to just open her mic, and she will let us know who's in the room joining us.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christine Sylvain. I'm the founder and director of Path to College.
Thank you, Christine. I know you were with us last month, and we definitely enjoy having you with us. Okay. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
No, I was just going to say, good to hear your voice again, Ms. Sullivan. Long time no see. At this time, we'll have the update from Chief Academic Office. I'm going to get that one right. Chief Academic Officer.
That's okay. It's just the work. That's all we're doing here. It's moving the work. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Madam Chair,
Yes.
for the Chief Academic Officer update, I did invite, for the essence of time, and we do have quite a bit that we want to cover tonight. Hopefully we will be able to get through everything. But I wanted to, part of my academic update, I invited our choice and career options, our director, Dr. Johnson, because we do have a lot that's happening over in that world. And of course, we have our Showcase of School that's coming up on October the 18th, as we know that our college fair had to be rescheduled to November the 1st. And that was the storm approaching, and we needed to make some decisions. And I think we made the right decision. As, of course, many of our colleges, universities, and other entities were going to be visiting us, and we wanted to just make certain that we were keeping everyone safe and well-being in mind. And with that being said, I'm just hoping that all of you are safe, you're well, and you got through that storm there. Ian definitely caught me off guard. And, you know, we continually to keep those families, the others that in the West Coast and the other communities that were impacted in our thoughts, and do what we can to help them as they've been impacted. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over as part of my update to Dr. Johnson, and then I will come back.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you guys for having me here this afternoon. I'm going to just go over a couple slides with you really quick, give you some really important deadline dates, and talk to you about a couple really special events that are coming on board as it relates to our choice and career options programs. So if you want to mark your calendars, and I know you'll have this slide deck, but we ask that you please share this information out with as many people as you possibly can as well. Our Showcase of Schools is coming up on October the 18th. That is next week. This is the first time we have had this event in person since COVID. We have had virtual Showcase of Schools the past 2 years, and so we are really excited to be able to come back in person to provide this opportunity for our families. We expect over 10,000 to attend this event, as we have in the past. We do have other departments that will be sharing the night with us from the district to provide additional information to parents, different departments such as transportation, ESE, ELL, to be able to answer those questions, to be able to support our families as we go into the choice season for this coming school year. The choice application will open on November 1st. We have a new choice process or platform that parents will be utilizing this year to apply, and I'll give you guys a sneak peek at some of that, even though it's not open yet, but it will open on November 1st. Those schools that require an audition for eligibility, the deadline for applications will be December 9th. So those schools include your Box, your Dreyfus, Boynton Beach, West Boca, and the Conservatory. So those applications will be due by December 9th. All other schools and programs, the application deadline will be January the 23rd. We are hosting a coordinators meeting. We have academy coordinators at each of our schools, and we will be meeting with them this week to go over additional information to help prepare them for the Showcase of Schools next week. Tomorrow night, Dr. Sheffield and I will be on 10. We will be hosting a Facebook Live event. So look out for that event. It will be similar to the Facebook Live event that was held regarding the college and career fair. This one will be our Facebook Live event for our choice programs. So what have we done to get the word out? Because certainly we want to make sure that every single student, every parent is aware of our choice and career programs. And so we have engaged in a very thorough run of show for marketing to include continuing to have our virtual Showcase of Schools page. This is the page that was built during COVID, but we will continue to offer that as well in the future. It will open and go live the day after our after our Showcase of School live event. This will be a place where parents can continue to go to look up information regarding the programs at each school. It'll be 24/7, and will also be there for the entire school year should parents want to look up information regarding a school. If you've been on our district website, you've seen the banner. This is our banner that you see here. Our theme this year is Where Tomorrow Starts Today. And so we are looking forward to, again, having our students visit the website, parents visit the website as well. For our home education students, you know, we want to welcome them back into the school system, and so we are doing a marketing campaign that goes out to our home ed students to let them know why we're the best choice and they need to come back to Palm Beach County Schools. Again, I mentioned the Facebook Live event tomorrow. We've had emails that have already been pushed out from our communications department. We will continue to do that until the Showcase of Schools. We've had call-out messages done. Either tomorrow or Wednesday, we will be on the radio. We will be on all of the iHeart stations, and we'll be on 102.3 with Hubbard. And so look out for those radio slots as well. We will also be on the television news with WPTV and a couple others promoting the showcase. ESOL resource teacher presentation. So our department hosts 2 resource teachers, one going out into our Hispanic community, another one that will go out into our Haitian Creole community. And when I say go out, I mean just that. They go to where parents are. So some parents aren't listening to the radio, some parents aren't going online. These 2 individuals go where the parents are. So if that's festivals, churches, wherever they need to be to give presentations so that, as I said before, all families are aware of the choice process and are applying for the programs. We've had text message blasts go out, definitely putting things on newsletter banners. We have banners on all of the radio stations with iHeart and Hubbard. We have this image on those radio station websites as well. And of course, in this day and age, we're taking advantage of all of our social media platforms, whether that be Twitter, Facebook for the older people like me, my son says, and Instagram. So if you're on social media, hopefully you have seen this marketing at this point. So not to get too deep into this, but I will tell you, this is kind of the front-facing page of what parents will now see when they go to mypbchoiceapp.com. So even though the platform that they will apply to is a little different, it's a new platform, the website that we have had for many, many years will remain the same. We were able to purchase that domain, so it will remain consistent in terms of what parents will see or be able to go to get to the application. But the platform itself will look a little bit different. And so as we get closer to the application opening up, there will be multiple opportunities for trainings with parents. The one good thing about this new system is the company does provide parental training as well and one-on-one assistance. But we will be working with our parents along the way and offering the opportunity to give more information as it relates to applying for their students. And the rest of them are just really screenshots that kind of go along with it. But we look forward to this choice season. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a question.
Yes.
What accommodations are there for parents that want to enroll their kids in a choice program but do not read English?
So we do have everything translated into Spanish, Haitian Creole, as well as Portuguese. The application itself, when parents go on, just like the previous online application, they have the ability to select a different language. So even though you see on the screen here, this application is in English, they have the ability to choose a different language, and it's over 120 different languages that they can choose to convert the application in to apply.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Feldman?
Yes, I noticed that you mentioned that there was an event on November, a due date for the applications to be January 23rd, but I believe in the slides it said January 27th. So I was just hoping to clarify which one was right.
Yeah, it's, let me go back. Yes, so the applications for schools with auditions is December 9th, and then the application for all other schools is January 27th,
Okay, great. Thank you.
2023. So that may be where the 23rd
That's
came
where
from.
it came in. Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that was it. I don't see any other hands for questions. But prior to, thank you, Dr. Johnson, for coming with us. And another part of my update, which also tied in with Dr. Johnson being here, because I don't think that I updated this group in regards to two phenomenal opportunities for our students, and that's working with the community college here at Palm Beach State and I think Dr. Coleman Farrell came on as well, but, this is the first time, we've been able to offer career technical ed, CTE, dual enrollment for our students. And we have a cohort that have just started. This is the first time, and we're actually doing it in the area of welding. And we have it here at the Lake Worth campus, and we're also there in the Glades. So, when we're talking about in regard to just making certain that we are providing opportunities for all students, because we realize that, all students are not necessarily going to go directly there into post-secondary or what have you. Or they may go to post-secondary, but they need to also go into the workforce there at the same time. And some may ask in regards to, well, how did you come up with welding and what brought that on? And of course, we do a lot of work, kudos to Dr. Johnson, her team, and the collaboration that we have there with the State College and also with Career Source. So there's just a lot more that's coming with that, but there was an opportunity that came there from the state. And I tell you, we started where we only had, say, 30 students, and we're looking at 15 students per each site. And we definitely, surpassed in regards to the interest level. So we're just looking to continue for those opportunities to make certain that we are making some leads again and trying to make certain that we are creating those spaces for all of our students and their families. Another part to that, hopefully that you are aware of, I'm not sure, but about a month or so ago, we also had an opportunity of working with Palm Beach State to where we came in together in working with I'm working on the cybersecurity grant. And again, that was a grant on part of the DOE, where Palm Beach State is actually holding on the funding agency with that, and we are working and doing some great work there, along with the $1 million grant around cybersecurity. And we know the opportunities that brings on for our students. But I'll let Dr. Johnson and, Dr. Coleman Farrell, if you want to chime in, by all means do so, and that will be it for my updates. But those were two big pieces that I wanted to update this group on. Dr. Johnson or Ms. Coleman Farrell. Dr. Farrell.
Dr. Farrell, I'll pass it to you first.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure if you can hear me very well as I am in transport, but I think that Dr. Sheffield summed it up. I think the most important thing is for us to know that we are working as a team collaboratively in order to provide the support and the infrastructure needed in order to offer opportunities for all of our students across the life of the K through 16 arena to advance their credentials. Knowing all of the challenges that we're facing with respect to funding across the life of state of Florida, we know that the best way to leverage these opportunities and to maximize resources is to work together. So I am so excited that we're doing so many great things together. I look forward to us continuing our partnerships and our endeavors because I think that this is where we can expand our reach. This is where we can expand the variety of programs that we are offering, and most importantly, create a climate and opportunities for those diverse and marginalized populations that we see impacted the most across the life of our school districts. So we're excited about it. There are several additional initiatives that I do know of that are coming down the pipeline to continue to expand this reach. So thank you so much, Dr. Sheffield, and give my regards to Superintendent Burke for all of the support, and Dr. Johnson, your support as well with regards to these initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Coleman Farrell.
And I think, Dr. Farrell, you summed it up. It has been awesome, the collaboration between these two particular grants, even though we collaborate on so many other things. But these two particular grants have brought in over $2 million to be able to provide the training in two very critical areas. One that's a little bit more high-end in terms of cybersecurity, but another one that when you compare sometimes the entry-level salary for people going into welding compared to some positions that require a four-year degree, a welder may make more money. And so we were really floored with the number of students who were interested in the few slots that we had. So what that said to us is that there is such a need and such an interest for more in the trades, and we're looking to do more of that. I know if Fred Barch was here for adult ed, he would chime in definitely on that, that we're really working diligently to try to get some technical centers back here in Palm Beach County because there is such a need for training. So we're really excited to be partnering as we always do with Palm Beach State College. And as Dr. Coleman Farrell said, there are actually some other projects that we have on the docket, and we look forward to being able to bring those forth soon.
Thank you all. And then the last part, last piece for me, of course, and we just have so much that's happening here, is the financial literacy component. And was just excited, had the opportunity of going over to Atlantic High School to where they received a $40,000 grant, thanks to Bank of America, and working, of course, with our Ed Foundation and making this happen. So, as we talk in regards to, this financial literacy and making certain that our students are prepared and they're introduced, and we know that this is also part of statute that's coming down as well. But most importantly, it's not statute that's requiring us in regards to leaning in as it pertains to the financial literacy piece, because we've been doing much work around that as a district. But what that is doing is allowing us to streamline, and we're needing to put more emphasis in some areas. But kudos to the Ed Foundation, thanks to Bank of America, for that $40,000 donation that they've made available to where Atlantic High School now is opening up their Academy of Finance program there, again, all in lieu of our financial literacy initiatives. So, Madam Chair, that will conclude my update this evening.
Thank you. All wonderful updates. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, which will be, excuse me, thank you, any presentation.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'll just go directly into, the next item on the agenda, and it's probably going to take us through some time because I invited back Mr. Nolan Roll. He is our manager for Library Media Services, and also we have in the room Lisa Cremona, who's our attorney that works with me very closely with us in academics, and you're very familiar when we had this conversation with at our, I think it was our August meeting, it was Bruce Harris that joined Nolan. But we wanted to come back, and Bruce was not able to be with us, but Lisa works very, very closely with us on all of the academic pieces. But what we wanted to do is to come back because now that we have done the board workshop around all of the policies as it pertains to library media, to classroom instructions and so forth, and then also in providing some clear directions, and now that policy, we're coming back on Wednesday for development, is that we wanted to just come back, go through this again with this awesome group, because as we go through it, as you remember, the academic advisory group, the same group, has a part in this that we have asked. And I'm sure that there are going to be some conversations because we have had our first trial and error in regards to some book orders, and you probably received the email with the links in regards to all those orders that came in. And some of you provided feedback, and we just want to provide you an opportunity to ask questions and give us some feedback, because as we move in this space, we just want to try to get this right. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Nolan that's going to walk us through this. Then when we get to 5B, that's where it comes in around the role of the Academic Advisory Committee. And I'll pause there. But Madam Chair, I think we have a question. Laura.
I don't know if this is too soon to ask, but the way the information comes to us, and I can certainly understand why it's helpful to have one school's book order all together, but sometimes their book orders are from the same book is selected for multiple schools. So and then it would be easier if when we're looking at one book, we could say this book works for, these 5 different schools, whoever has asked for the book. I don't know if there's an easy way to organize it that way so that we're not going back through the list, because I started keeping my own list of all the books so I can make sure to not have to spend time rereading a book if I've already done it.
Okay, thank you, Laura, for that feedback. Madam Chair, how do you want to do this? You want to take questions up front, or do you want us to just go through this document, then highlight the 5B, then come back? What's your desire?
I would say the desire of the committee. Honestly, I really think that if there's any questions for the committee, because we have already been doing the library, we have already started with the collections and reviewing them. If there's any questions at this time,
Okay.
go ahead and share those get those questions out. And as Mr. Nolan and whoever in staff, whoever's doing the presentation, continues through their presentation, they'll be able to answer any additional questions that we may have. So any questions, I would say just ask those questions now.
Okay, so Laura, we will come back. So Laura, we're going to take your question, and your question is, when we're sending the books that have been submitted for ordering, is there a way for us to see if the book is being submitted once and just provide that title once? Is that your question?
Yes, basically. Can it be organized by book instead of organized by school?
All right, I'll turn it over to Nolan. I'm going to turn it over to Nolan for the questions at this point, because that would be, of course, his team.
All right, so good afternoon. Thank you for the question. The way that the process works is it would be very difficult for us to be able to pull it by title that's coming in. So with all of the schools, when they're doing their orders, I wish that we could make it that efficient, but there's really no way to do that and meet the statute requirements of putting those books up for parents to be able to see, is my understanding. So unfortunately, the way that we're doing it, even though it's cumbersome, is kind of the best case scenario.
I had a feeling that would be the answer, but I thought it was worth asking.
Trust me, from myself and my staff that are going through these as well, we wish we could do it the other way as well.
And I'll this is Charmaine. I'll just add, Nolan, I know I've sent a couple of emails and then a follow-up email and haven't gotten a response back. If the question that I had, is there a way for consistency in how the books are being requested? So some schools have the titles only, some schools send the invoices, others send pictures, while another may send pictures with a description. At minimum, I was asking if there could be just pictures, that would be helpful. But it's just no consistency in how the books are sent.
Right. Some include ISBN numbers, some don't. Some include the authors.
And then, like, for even one of the schools, like if they're ordering comics, some schools just send the receipt. So like it's Comics Plus. Well, Comics Plus, what was it the episode where there was some gruesome killing, or was it just a random I don't know what episode was that, or what season or what series of that Comics Plus they were referring to, and that was the September 23rd Palm Beach Gardens High School. So I just there was just a lot of inconsistencies in how they're coming, and I just want to make sure we're doing our job and doing it diligently.
Yeah, and again, it's really difficult for the media specialists, especially when you think about our elementary media specialists in particular. They're teaching 7 to 8 classes a day, plus they're taking in orders from teachers that are trying to order books for the school, and trying to process all of those. So to take the books out of the orders that they're given and create another list is a big ask for them. Because generally, in addition to teaching those classes and doing the preparations for those classes, they're also having to meet with teachers to try to come up with extending and refining lessons. They're also having to try to keep deal with circulation, so the books that are coming back in, They're having to check those back in, get those back out on the shelves, reshelve them. A lot of them don't have media clerks to help out with that process, unfortunately. So at the end of the day, they're really swamped. And I'm afraid if we ask them to create consistent lists, it makes it easier for us, but it makes it more challenging for them, which ultimately has a negative impact on the students.
Not a problem, but what if that was something that was to come back down to it? Like if that was something where, you have some pretty good people on this committee who are not going to give you the headache. But if that was the case, would that not be something that's proactive to share with them? Like, hey, it's not something you need to do right now, but maybe in the future, something to consider, because I can foresee how that could be. I've been asked, and I just tell them I most of my questions come because there's a problem, and that's why I sent it in an email. But I always refer them back to you guys, and I know they would never email you guys. So I just want you to know, like, if that comes to be a problem, I'm just being proactive.
Well, we appreciate that. I mean, and I get, I understand, Nolan is thinking in terms of the staffing and then the staffing within his department. But that's definitely great feedback, and I'm making a note for myself to go back in terms with leadership to talk in regards to what some of the challenges are. And as we continue to develop the systems and framework in terms of what will it require for us to continue to refine the systems that we have in place. So we definitely concur. So it's our job to just think in regards to developing the best system and then to talk about what those cadence will look like or what do we need to make it work. So we do appreciate that feedback. Well taken.
Absolutely.
I'd like to raise a point. I think when we look at what's happened in the state of Florida over the past year or so with regard to books in the library, textbooks, concerns about critical race theory, these issues are not coming from an ideologically neutral perspective. And as someone who's devoted his career to the teaching of African American, Latino, gender, and GLBT topics, I am concerned that what is happening in the state of Florida and the way it may impact Palm Beach County schools is censorship by another name. Because if you look at what has been objected to, it is precisely books that contain topics which are GLBT in nature or contain race as a topic or perhaps immigration as a topic. I don't see any books being objected to which talks about life in a Midwestern small town. So I think we have to all on this committee, we're the Academic Affairs Committee, recognize that we have a responsibility to all of our kids to make sure that whether it's books in the library or textbooks in the classroom or any other materials, that they give students a broad representation of the content and of this nation. And I don't think that that is the emphasis that is currently being taken by the Department of Education in Tallahassee.
Carlos, I share those same sentiments, and I think you said it. That's why I said the people who are reviewing those books, I believe, on this committee, who are reviewing those books, have those same sentiments that you share. But I do see a hand recognize Laura, and then I will turn the floor over to Mr. Nolan.
I have another process question, which is when we're giving you back feedback, how do you want to receive that? Would it be best to just send it as an email? Is there a form you'd prefer us to fill out if we just say these are all good? Or how do you want the information to be sent to you?
Excellent question. So as far as the feedback, you can just send an email back to the email just respond back to the email that comes to you.
Okay. And then if we have, because I believe in the process it said that we could reach out for input from community members. And if we are getting someone's help in being able to go through all of these books, um, can they access the document which has the links to open up books, or is it best off if we access that document and then give them lists to review?
So that list is forward-facing, so anyone should be able to access it, because we would like to, and if they want to give us their feedback directly, they can do that. They don't have to necessarily give the feedback back through you,
Okay,
but that's for any stakeholder that would like to give us feedback.
great. Thank you.
Is that it, Madam Chair, for this part? Are there any other questions?
Yes, it says that the media specialists are going to be taking a training course developed by the Florida Department of Education. I'm wondering if our presenter has any idea what that contains, because if it's anything like the civic education training that the DOE gave to social studies teacher, that one had a strong ideological agenda to it. So I'm wondering if we have any inkling as to what it is that media specialists are going to be trained to do.
So that training's not been created yet, but I have been watching the state or the committee that's forming that training, and I can tell you that it's comprised of media specialists that are very passionate about their work, and then there's also parents on the committee. So they're working through what that's going to look like. But as of right now, the topics that I've seen them cover is basic things that media specialists would learn if they were getting their master's in library information science. So just basic book selection so far. There's no ideology part that's come in yet, but for the part that I've seen, it's mostly being a good librarian and how to select books properly.
Thank you.
Nolan, is there anything else you need to share? The group, you're good. Okay. Madam Chair, if there are no other questions, I think that will wrap up. Just wanted to make certain that if the committee had any, questions, and of course you did, and wanted to provide clarification around the selection of the library media materials and the assistance that we need from the academic advisory group, which was, I think, Nolan here. You have it, Nolan. If you can scroll to it. I think it's 5B. I think we've taken care of it. We're just going to it. There it is. So, Madam Chair, at this time, I think that are we good to move on?
I would like to add one thing really quickly. And to Dr. Diaz's point that he made earlier about the list of books that's been published, that's been reviewed. With that list, a lot of the books that were uploaded to that, you have to look at that list very carefully. So yes, there's a lot of them. All of them, let's be honest, are books that are of sensitive topics. We'll call it that. Those books were suggested, a lot of them ahead of time, to try to get in front of the situation, so that we could provide examples of books that people may think are controversial, but that are not, and that are perfectly okay to be included in our collections. So that's what a lot of those books are there for. It wasn't that they were necessarily challenged by anybody or questioned. We just wanted to make sure that books that might have been viewed as controversial were reviewed ahead of time, and that everybody knows that they're completely okay to have on our library shelves.
I have one question. What happens if one of the reviewers says that they don't think this book is appropriate? What happens?
So what happens with the review process is we check the professional reviews for the books. And then it's people in my department that wind up making the final decision, so those are master librarians. And it's based off of professional reviews and checking content of the book to make sure that it aligns with where it's supposed to be at. But it's generally, we come to a consensus within the department.
Okay, so it's not the final decision.
It is, once it's posted
No, I
on.
meant the reviewer's comment is not the final decision.
I may not be sure what you're asking exactly, but once it's, let's say that the book is questioned by a teacher or it's questioned by a parent, a stakeholder, then once they give us the feedback, we go in and we check the books and we check them against our policy and statutes to make sure that they're in alignment with that. And as long as they're fine, then they move forward. We just take the feedback into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to add something quickly before we go to a new topic. I've always felt that there are two criteria for curriculum, whether it's textbooks or books in the library. One is it developmentally appropriate to the age of the student? And secondly, is it true? But books can be both developmentally appropriate and true and still be objected to. Because some people simply don't want certain truths told in our classrooms. And as a result, when you look at America's knowledge base, when you find material which is, let's say, less complementary to the national or societal image, people tend to know a lot less about it. How many people know about the Tulsa Race Massacre in 1921? So there is a natural inclination for people to want to push aside content which is not complementary to the national image. The only problem with that is that students get a very skewed picture of our society. And I hope that the folks in the library services are aware of that, because the criteria for book selection used by professional librarians are quite different from those that are used by ordinary folk.
Okay. Are we ready to move on?
We are. I believe that, I'm not sure, Charmaine has another meeting and she asked if I could
Okay.
take over for that. I wasn't sure if she was going to be able to introduce me, but it sounds like she has not had the opportunity.
Okay. So then are we ready to move on?
We are.
Move on, Laura?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay, as the next item on the agenda, and before we move to the next item, I just want to remind the members here, this was, again, all around the library media. Definitely appreciate you all leaning in with us on this. And we do the policies around this. There are 3 different policies, and the policies are up for development on the 12th, this coming Wednesday. This is where the board members will continue to provide their feedback to all 3 of those policies. And at the same time, I will also be bringing to the board for workshop 2 additional policies. I will be bringing on Wednesday, the 12th, I will be bringing policy 2.40. This is the policy that's on field trip, because in the midst of some of the legislative updates, there are some changes that we need to also make with our field trip policies and so forth, and making certain that we are being inclusive of all students around policy 2.40. And at the same time, I will also be workshopping policy 8.01. Policy 8.01 is actually our student pupil progression plan. So as you're tuning in on Wednesday night to hear the development and the feedback from the board on the 3 policies around classroom, libraries, and library media, you will then also have an opportunity to hear the workshop for policy 2.40 and policy 8.01. And then I'm going to move into the next part here, and hopefully we can, we'll be able to finish up this particular part here. Nolan, I think you have the Do you have the mask? Do I have it? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I have a lot going on here. And just pull up. Okay, what I decided, because I was trying to get HR because we wanted to just talk about the vacancies and so forth, as it pertains to our title versus non-title, and I was not able to schedule HR, and we have a conflict with meetings tonight because we also have the Superintendent Black Excellence Committee that's meeting as well. And so I'm going to continue to work with HR to get them onto the agenda, but also on the agenda was part in regards to where we and the progress that we're making around our Hispanic and Black students participating in accelerated coursework and the progress there. I'm not sure of all of you, those of you that were able to watch the part 1 of the fall instructional review that Mr. Turney and myself did for the board there on September the 21st. We did not get through, I'm just going through, in the slides that I'm moving forward is the mission and vision and the equity statement. But I did not get through, we did not get through the entire instructional review, and neither had I shared this data with you all. But the data that you're asking and you're wanting to see around the accelerated coursework is actually towards the end. I think it's slide 42. That's where we're going to be picking up with part 2 of the fall instructional review with the board on this coming Wednesday. Because once we got there and the board saw the work that was being done, we of course, and rightfully so, we did not want to have to rush through because we had a 5 o'clock hard stop time. So we stopped and we're adding a part 2, and part 2 will be talking around the accelerated coursework, the progress that was made last year around scheduling, and where has this scheduling and the work that was done, did we make any progress with it? And what I will have to say to you is that it is not perfect. There's still a lot of work that we have to do here as a system, but it's just aligning those framework and creating some structures that's going to allow us to move forward here. So what I will do, and I guess I will pause there for a minute for the will of the group. The first part of this, of course, is just taking us through the first part of, last year's, how we ended the year. Do you want to go through these slides, or would you like to go directly to the slide around the master board analysis that's going to give the breakdown in terms of where we are with the acceleration of coursework as it pertains to the percentage of students within our district in the various subgroups, and what percentage are actually being introduced and providing the opportunity to be exposed to the course acceleration. So Laura, I'll pause. That is a question.
Well, I know what my preference is, but I open it up for others to chime in.
And as you were thinking, and then the last one, you all are very familiar with the data here. Of course, this was just the end of the year data that came in as it pertains to, FY22, because FY19 was our last normal year. I hate saying that. Before us going into COVID, then we know what school year 20 and 21 brought us. Most importantly, brought our student learners transitioning from the classroom to their homes, right? So, and then school year 22, Randy, I will ask Diane, once I download, I will ask Diane to attach this to the calendar invite. So this is the last normal year here, well, last school year. So you could see in comparing to where we were with the urban 7, these are the 7 districts that we like to compare ourselves to in regards to, where we are and how do we work together. And it's a lot that, we do tend to collaborate in regards to some of the challenges and so forth, and use each other, use each other's as thought partners. Here in Palm Beach, highlighted here in the blue, it's just where we are, where we came in first or what have you. But you can see Palm Beach is here. And we, of course, I always look in regards to, and people say, well, what is it that Miami-Dade is doing? And I like to always tell them, well, Miami-Dade has some very, very strict, the autonomy is not there. They hold very, very tight in regards to their core of their instruction. So we can talk about that, more later, but that's some of what we're doing now around our literacy, particularly around K2. And when I share that K2 data with you, you will see in terms of holding back, pulling back some of that autonomy, and really and truly looking at those foundational skills in terms of working with our students, the progress that are being made there. And
so based on Randy's comment, if we could go ahead to the master board process, I think that would be great.
Okay. We'll go to the master board. Okay. So, in starting with the master board, and this is the work that the team, Mr. Turney, of course, led a lot of this work, with principal supervisors back last year. This is the time that we start having collaboration, start working and planning for the upcoming year. So in November, December, we start having those conversations for FY24 and being intentional. So what we have done here is in regards to over here, I'm saying over to my left, but when you look at where the box representatives, where I have my cursor here, what it's saying is that back and how we've captured this data is back, you can see here, this first group here is talking about, we have 27.5% of our students here, middle school students, in the district is being identified as Black. Out of the Black students, 22.8% of those students were recommended for advanced coursework from the elementary over into middle school. And these are our elementary principals working with their teachers and having a hand in regards to the course recommendation for students when they get into middle school.
Sorry to interrupt, but just to clarify, that's 22% of the 27%?
Yes.
Or is it 22% of all students in advanced coursework?
22% of the 27%. 22% of our students, 22% of these students are in advanced. 22%, of the 27% is in advanced coursework. And it will go, and you can see here with our Hispanic students, how 36% of the 39% of our Hispanic students were recommended, I should say. It's not. Now, we're not saying they're in, we're saying that they were recommended. There is another slide there. And then this here is our subgroup of students here. 26.5% of our white students, out of the 26.5%, 32% of those students, which is above, are in advanced coursework. Then these are the representatives here. Now when we get...
I'm sorry to interrupt again, but what do you mean by it's above? Because you're saying 32% of 26%.
Wait a minute, look, let me turn my computer
So
screen.
1/3 of 26% of all students, right?
Yes, wait a minute, let me look up. I'm looking at the screen here. So 26%, 22%, the representation of the overall group is 22% of our Black students, is 27%. Out of the 27% of our representation group, 22% of those students were recommended for advanced coursework. 22%. Now, when they got over here to the Hispanic group, out of the Hispanic group, there was 39% that were representation overall. Out of the representation, the 39% overall, 36% of those students were recommended. When we get to the next slide, I think it's the next slide, is actually going to show us out of the representation group, these are the students, this is our representation here. Now when you get over here, we're going to see actually the number of students, and I don't know why I'm having a hard time seeing in here. Now we're actually going to see the percentage of students that were actually here that are in the advanced coursework from being they're the representation group, and these are the recommendations. I think that's how they have it here. I want to look at something else here, and I should have waited and let the team come when they could do this piece. And you could see here, with the recommendation here, like right here, when you look at our black, 40% of our black students are in our regular, has been recommended for our regular coursework. 20.9% are in our advanced course, and only 36.2% of our black students, only 36.2% of our black students were recommended for advanced coursework. These are the representation here. And when our Hispanic students, 42.5% were recommended. And then 70% of our white students were recommended. And I want to look at a next slide here. Let me see something here. And then these are, and you could see here, and it goes back to our ELL, but these by the subgroups, our black students, the Hispanic, and then the white. And then when you get to your ELL subgroups here, which continues to be concerning for us, is that only 22.9% of our ELL students were recommended for advanced coursework out of 58.5% of our non-ELL students being recommended for advanced coursework. And when I looked at this particular slide, particularly around our ELL students, wondering why such low number of our ELL students were recommended for the advanced coursework, it became relevant to us in talking with some of our staff was the lack of training. So I did have a group of teachers, I did have a group from teaching and learning that was going to be participating in a training with AP Advanced Placement and ACE Cambridge. Advanced Placement took place about a week ago there. ACE Cambridge just canceled theirs because it was out on the West Coast, to particularly look at the strategies and what we could do to leverage more of our participation for our ELLs, not just our ELL students, but our ESE students. Because the data, just how we're looking in regards to the low number of students, or I should say the lack of participation of our ELL students, is just as disingenuous as for our ESE students, which is a concern for us.
Okay, I've got a couple of follow-up questions. If on the left side, well, if we can stick with the ELL, so on the left side, we see that 17% of the 25% of students, so that's less than 1/5, right?
Yes.
Of the students who are ELL are recommended for, and then you have on the right, you have 23.7, and do I understand this correctly, that these are 23.7% of all ELL students are recommended for advanced courses with support?
Yes.
And 22.9% are recommended for advanced courses without support.
Without support.
So in essence, 23.7 plus 22.9% are recommended for advanced coursework, correct?
Yes.
But that does not equal the 17.2% that's shown on the left.
No, I'm going to ask the data team to look at the representative slide, because that's concerning to me. Let's look in regards to those students that were recommended, because I think they may have had some numbers twisted here. So I will come back and clarify for you around the representative piece, if we could look in regards to those that were recommended.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Yes, Dr. Diaz?
It is very difficult for people who are monolingual to fully recognize the talents of a student who don't speak their language. And it seems to me that one of the issues that you see behind these charts is that a lot of people making the recommendations basically use one criterion for excellence, and that is the ability to express yourself or to make your talents evident in English. And that's the currency of the realm. The other question I have is, how subjective are the recommendations? Are there strict criteria that would put an ELL student on the same footing as an English native student? Because let's say if we had native English speakers trying to make advanced courses in middle school, and they were being asked to express themselves in a second language, my guess is a lot fewer of them would be recommended. So I guess my fundamental question is, what are the criteria that teachers are using for the recommendations? And do those criteria allow for parity of consideration between ELLs and non-ELL students?
And Dr. Diaz, and I have to tell you, and I have to say off the cusp, and these are the conversations that we are having, is that when we're looking at identifying students, and what we have to get away from, because many of it has been around, of course, their grades, the test scores, and at what point, do we also look at the student's ability level in terms of providing that support and giving them that exposure and providing them those exposures along with the support, and providing not just that support of putting those structures in place for the students, but I think you hit on it in regards to what is it that we're doing for the teachers and making certain that they understand in terms of how to differentiate and how to provide that support for the students that are being exposed and giving the opportunity. And again, that's what a lot of the training in which we're looking at and providing for our teachers, our ELL teachers and our ESC teachers. Because that is a lot of what we hear is that, and I don't want, we're hearing that they're not going to be successful. Well, if they're not going to be successful, then what are those support structures and those support mechanisms that we can put in place that's going to allow them the opportunity to be exposed and to attempt in terms of them giving them the tools to where they can be successful.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you are going.
It is, because in the mindset of a traditional educator, if you're going to go into advanced coursework, then mastery in English is a given. And if you don't have mastery in English, you don't belong in any kind of advanced coursework. The idea that some kid could be extremely talented and yet not have full fluency in English, and therefore still be a good candidate for advanced coursework in middle school or high school, is a radical notion for many educators. I used to use the example in my classes at FAU that if little Albert Einstein came into our schools at the age of 8, he would not be recommended for any advanced coursework because his native language was German. So I think we really need to do some deep insight into this matter and come up with a structure that allows for parity and consideration for the ELL students so that there is zero chance of any kind of implicit bias affecting the recommendation. And as you can see from the current data, we seem to have a lot of it.
As a follow-up question, as I recall from our presentation about the dual language program, there was great success in, and I believe also within advanced coursework for these students. And I think sharing that information, because you've got that well documented, can help open up people's eyes as to the effectiveness of, one, that instruction, and two, that you can be successful when you're learning in a different language. And I think that could really open up some teachers who are monolinguals' eyes. And that could be useful in terms of the introduction to needing a better system to identify students.
And one thing that we're doing with that, and I agree with both Laura and Dr. Diaz, thanks for this conversation, is that in November at our principal's meeting in November, that entire day is dedicated to, we're doing ESE and ELL. And what we're doing with that is, we're looking at the instructional framework, and I'll talk around the MTSS framework and talking around the interventions that we're using for both groups of students, subgroup of students, and what that looks like and why that is important. It all goes back in regards to the framework that is necessary for both groups of students to be in place to where we can ensure their success. And then look in regards to, because we have some places that is working well, and then utilize our principals in those schools that we know that have those strong systems and those frameworks to where the students and the teachers are being successful, to where they're going to spend some time there with their colleagues and share out and talk around some of those best practices and so forth. So we're taking time to really hit the brakes, to really look in regards to exactly what is it that we're doing that is not working, because if you continue to do the same thing, why would you expect your results to be any different? So when we talk about providing the opportunities, for our students, and let's say for all students, and when we say all students, being inclusive, I'm just talking about our two subgroups here around ESC and ELL. Well, what does that look like? Because those are the groups that we're focusing on in November. Again, to talk around in regards to what are the systematic framework, what are those interventions, what is appropriate, and not just how we build capacity and put some structures and structures and things in place for our students, but we're going to have to be just as due diligent as doing it for our teachers as well. And those are the kind of conversations that we're having in November. Because if our teachers are successful and we're setting those frameworks and giving those cadence to our teachers, then it will turn around for our students, right? So, I think this conversation here this evening is very much on target in regards to what we're wanting to do with our teachers, that's going to have a greater impact on our students. But at the end of the day, it's not okay. And we know that it's not okay, but we're hitting brakes to look at what we're doing that's not working.
I have another, sorry, Carlos, one second. I have another question, just to think about this, and then Carlos can go, which is, what percentage of the students that are recommended for advanced coursework in middle school were already involved in the AMP program?
You mean the AMP from elementary?
Yes. Carlos, your turn.
Well, I'll wait for Dr. Sheffield's answer.
Carlos, I would have to pull that data. I don't have it handy right now.
Okay. Just a couple of other points to consider. How many of our teachers and administrators have ever had to access academic content in a second language? Most of our teachers and administrators have never had to do what we are asking ELLs to do, and therefore have no firsthand experience with just how cognitively complex that is. I'm one of those people that has had that experience. I had to access content in my second language starting in first grade. But secondly, there's also research that when kids are exposed to advanced content, even if they don't make an A in it, they normally come out with more academic achievement than if they had taken a regular class. So when we have a situation where the only way to access advanced academic content is when you have shown, native proficiency in English, that means you're not getting access to ideas because you don't have the mastery of the language yet. And that is a significant issue because, first of all, many of these students we all know are Hispanic. I'm the chairman of the Hispanic Education Coalition, and one of the reasons I sit on this committee is to look out for their interests, as well as kids who are Haitian or ESC or whatever. But I think in the training of teachers, the issue that what we are asking students to do is something that most of them have never done, is something that needs to be reinforced. Because if nothing else, it will build an empathy and support for the magnitude of the tasks that these students are facing.
But, and I think, Carlos, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think I heard you say expose as well, and giving them that exposure to that accelerated coursework, to where we're not, is that what you said?
Yes, I said the exposure to the advanced coursework is important.
It is, and I think you and I said the same thing
Yeah.
from the beginning. And that's when you were asking the criteria, was you, Laura, asked the criteria that at times that tend to be used when we're identifying students for coursework, which are the grades, the test scores, and some of those other pieces, the teacher recommendation. And that's why I talked in regards to at what point, do we provide the student the exposure, and when you're giving them that exposure, and students are seeing that success, because at many times the students are being beaten down to where they've been told that they can't, or they will not be successful, to where they lose that sense of efficacy in themselves. So, and that's why we're finding a way in terms of just making certain that we understand the exposure is so important.
Well, one thing is certain, if they don't get a chance, then the odds of not being successful are 100%.
Absolutely.
And many of these ELL students could, not all, but many could handle the advanced coursework if they had some language mediated support to handle the complexity in language, because they're not quite there yet, but they have a perfectly good mind to handle complex ideas.
Which brings in another point, which I think that there's still an issue with many, with some people within the system, that if you have a student who has an IEP, that that there can be appropriate accommodations made so that that student can be successful within an advanced coursework, whether they're in middle school or high school. And I think that there's still a push that if a student can't handle the course as it is commonly given and taught, that therefore the student should not be in the class. And I think that emphasis on allowing for and enabling appropriate accommodations is important for those students.
Well, I think we should all agree on the fact that process is negotiable, but what we expect of students in terms of product is not. So we expect all students to get to the same goal. How they get there may vary if you're a regular student or an ESE student or an ELL student. And one of the reasons why historically a lot of these kids haven't gotten the chance is because systems haven't wanted to alter the process. It's more work, folks. It is more work. And frankly, if certain kids don't get into that class, then you don't have to worry about providing the mediation process.
Okay. Laura, you want to go ahead?
Yes, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's fine. Thank you for taking so many questions. I just have a quick one. I'm curious what the support does look like for these students. And I'm curious if there's a scoring matrix that is used when making a recommendation, and if it's just a matter of adding to that matrix this type of parity that Dr. Diaz is talking about.
The scoring matrix, you're saying that when a recommendation is made?
Right. Do all teachers follow?
There is no scoring matrix. It is not that formal. You will, and it varies from school to school, right? This was our first year. This past year was our first year to where we wanted the elementary, say, I'm going to talk about, let's say, middle school. So it would have been those fifth grade students transitioning to middle school, to where those fifth grade teachers and the principal actually took time to where principals sat, met with their teachers, talk and look at the students' data, and then talk in regards to how and why they were recommending a student, whether it's for advanced, regular, or what have you, right? And that's what it was. Was there a matrix or something that we used as a system? Absolutely not. So it could be very subjective from campus to campus, right? And I think, you know, that point was made earlier. So as we are, you know, preparing and continuously trying to refine in regards to what that looks like, then maybe we need to look in regards to, is there something that we can come up as a system? You know, I don't know. That's something for us to have a conversation with.
And the supports that they receive, is it also varies school to school, I'm assuming?
You mean the supports once a student is in the class?
Yeah.
Well, for any, I mean, you know, if a student, say an ELL or an ESE student, if they're in, whatever course they're in, whether it's a regular, advanced, or acceleration, if they have, say an IEP, 504, if they have their LEP plan, whatever, of course, they're going to receive the support that's there. But anytime a student is struggling, or whatever the case may be, or having difficulty, we do have those support structures to where, you know, from the teachers, from the resources and things that we have on campuses, that should automatically filter into the classrooms. Now, is that happening? I'm not going to sit here and say it's happening in every single classroom, but of course, again, it goes back to the school in regards to the structure and the framework that you have set up on your campuses to provide support to your individuals, your target students. And that's why when I talked earlier about the work that we were doing in November with our principals around particularly ESE and ELL, and I talked around the framework, well, what does the framework looks like for providing interventions for all of our students? Our framework is the MTSS model. Well, in providing and utilizing the MTSS model, if you know about it, it talks around the encompasses of educating the total child with all these different groups, these different entities come together, and they have conversation in regards to what is that child immediate needs, and they try to figure it out, how to get that child that need. Whether it's from, you know, counseling, or whether it's truly an academic area. And once we've dug deep to find out what academic area, and then when you say literacy, well, what area of literacy? Is it, you know, is it decoding? Is it some of those foundational skills? How do we drill down to make certain that we are being intentional to the individual child? And that's why we're so big around talking about the MTSS model, the framework, and school-based team, and being intentional about the support for all students. Because it cannot be a one-size-fit-all. And it cannot be to where it's not enough time in the day, right? How do you create those systems and those structures on your campuses to meet the needs of all children? And that's where we're not struggling with it, but we know that it's an area that we definitely need to work on, because it's not happening. It's happening less than more. So because of that, and you've identified, I'm a firm believer, when you've identified a weak area, then you stop and you look for some systems in terms of that you put in place to work on it. And that's an area that we need to work on, is streamlining and coming up with the framework and providing the support. And it's around the interventions. That's where we're having to really stop and hit brakes. It's the interventions.
So as a follow-up question, sort of, this advanced coursework in middle school, is that referring to high school level courses taken within middle school, or are these courses that are labeled as being advanced?
They're advanced. Advanced.
Okay. So
advanced. And then I'm going backwards. Okay, advanced. And I know we're not going to get through all. You probably want me to come back with this, and I will.
Yes, please.
Because we got caught on the first 3 slides. And I'm going to try to get Paul Hutchins to come with me the next time, where we can really dig deep. And then I'll also, even to add to this, I think what would be good, as I'm talking around the interventions and the MTSS model, well, what does that look like on our campuses in providing support for our students? Because many times people tend to think that when we talk about interventions or that additional support, that it's for our students It's not for our advanced or our accelerated student, and that is so far from the truth. It is so far from the truth.
As follow-up also, can you include information as to which subjects these are in advanced coursework? And also the percentages of students who are in high school level courses while in middle school? Because that's sort of a comparable acceleration process is what we'd also see in high school, of high school students taking AP, ACE, IB courses, or dual enrollment.
So you say you want the subject?
Yes, please. And to see the percentages by subject, math, social studies, science, English,
Okay.
and Spanish or whichever other non-English languages are being taught.
Okay.
Dr. Sheffield?
Yes, Dr. Diaz.
Just a couple suggestions because, I'm always thinking like an academic researcher. But if we want to create a more objective process for recommendations of elementary kids for middle school advanced placement, it seems to me we have to do a deeper dive into those kids that are already there from, let's say, vulnerable populations, ESC, ELL, et cetera, and see what is it about those that succeed as opposed to those who do not. Because I'm sure that data is available if we just mine it. And secondly, if you ask the average elementary teacher, what do you think a student needs to be successful in advanced coursework in middle school? I think you're going to get all kinds of answers.
You will.
So if you get all kinds of answers, then you have people recommending or not recommending based on all kinds of criteria. And therefore that becomes a fairly subjective process, which I guess does not work to the benefit of ESC or ELL students because those students do not present the traditional image of a student that historically has been one who populated advanced courses.
I think we need to keep that subjectivity in mind.
Yes.
Across the board for all students, because you might have a student who is frustrated and acting out because they're just bored. And that, so then they're perceived in a negative manner when the crux of the problem is they need that advancement.
Yeah. But I think in order to create the criteria for recommendations from elementary teachers, we need to be able to isolate what are the criteria that we can identify for success in advanced placement middle school courses. Because if we can identify those criteria, then you can create a rubric for elementary teachers to apply equally to all students. And that may bring us some level of commonality to what elementary teachers are recommending.
We're actually beyond our time limit. It's now 7:17. And I have a feeling that this is a conversation that will be longer than 5 to 10 minutes. So I'm thinking that if possible, we should please continue this presentation in our next meeting.
Our next, November. So we can continue this one, and then in continuing, I'm going to check with that master scheduling team that's doing this project with a group here at the office, and then probably invite them as well. And that way
That'd be
we can
great.
share out, I think, share in terms of what that process looked like. Then we could talk about some of these recommendations, because you all are, points very well taken. And this is the kind of work that I definitely want to do with the committee, to use you as thought partners and for you to push us to be even greater and realize that we need to close these gaps. So I think in terms of continuing this in October, but adding the second part to this around the master board piece, so that when we're starting this, say December or January, we would have had those conversations. That make sense?
That would be great. I do have one other request, is this is taking a look at information on a county level. And I would like to find out, or I hope that these rates of advancement are consistent throughout our district. But my guess is that might not be true. And so if we can boil this down to a more local level to find out whether, I don't know if it would work within schools or in particular regions, to see if we have consistent data. I would be interested in that as well.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we have our agenda item for next meeting.
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you so much for bringing this up.
No, thank you all. Thank you all. So I think our next meeting is November, what is it, Diane? November?
May I please ask one more question?
Yes.
Yes.
Just regarding a presentation on teacher vacancies. Was there anything planned to do a presentation on teacher vacancies in Title I schools versus other schools?
We're trying to get that planned. Actually, was trying to get it for this month. Of course, you have to get them when they're available. So I don't think we're going to be able to do both of them, at next month's meeting, but we do have that on as an item. Okay, it's November 14th is our next meeting. Okay.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Adjourning the meeting at 7:20. Have a
Okay.
good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Laura, for helping us finish this out. And thanks, everyone. Appreciate the conversations.
Have a good evening. Thank you.